1800 hours Pakistan Standard Time. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Daman Zaman. The headlines. The Prime Minister inaugurating low-cost family flats for labourers in Peshawar today said the government is committed to ensure welfare of the poor and supremacy of the law in the country. The Information Minister giving a practical demonstration of prototype electronic voting machine in Islamabad today again invited the opposition parties to play their role in finalising the electoral reforms. The Minister for Planning inaugurating mass vaccination centre in Islamabad today vowed to achieve vaccination target at the earliest. The Foreign Minister with his Palestinian, Sudanese and Turkish counterparts has left Turkey for New York to attend the United Nations General Assembly emergency meeting and draw the international community's attention towards Israel's atrocities on the unarmed Palestinians. Thousands of people held protests to express solidarity with Palestinians in front of the Israeli missions across the United States. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the All Parties Hurriyat Conference leaders have urged the people to observe a complete strike and conduct a march towards Mazar-e-Shohada at Eidgah in Srinagar on Friday. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Imran Khan inaugurated low-cost family flats for labourers in Peshawar today. Under the project, 2,056 family flats will be distributed among registered workers of the province through balloting. 3% quota has been reserved for widows and 2% for differently abled people. Addressing the ceremony, the Prime Minister Imran Khan said the government is committed for the welfare of the poor people and supremacy of the law will be ensured at all costs. He said the government has launched work on various mega development projects for the construction of dams to cater to the future energy and water needs. Imran Khan said according to the United Nations Development Programme report, poverty is significantly decreasing in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, besides spending much resources on human resource development. He said all the vacant lands in the province will be utilised for the construction of houses for labourer and poor people. Talking about the construction work on Mamand Dam, the Prime Minister said this reservoir will be completed by 2025. He said it will irrigate 17,000 acres of land, provide 300 million gallons of water to the residents of Peshawar and generate cheap electricity. Imran Khan said 10 small and big dams will be constructed in the country by 2028 to take care of electricity needs and ensure food security in the country. The Speaker National Assembly Asad Kaisar called on the Prime Minister Imran Khan in Islamabad today. During the meeting, matters pertaining to legislation and the next budget session were discussed. The Speaker apprised the Prime Minister about holding of Economic Cooperation Organization's Parliamentary Assembly Conference in Islamabad, in which parliamentary speakers of the ECO member countries will participate. The government gave a practical demonstration of preliminary model of an electronic voting machine at the Parliament House in Islamabad today. The Minister for Information and Broadcasting Chaudhry Fawad Hussain and the Advisor on Parliamentary Affairs Dr. Babar Awan presented the prototype machine. Briefing the media, Chaudhry Fawad Hussain said the 36 conditions of the Election Commission of Pakistan have been fulfilled in this model of the electronic voting machine. He said the electronic voting machine will produce quick election results and the contesting candidates will have no reason to level allegations of rigging. The Planning Minister Asad Umar inaugurated a mass vaccination centre in Islamabad today. Speaking on the occasion, he said 7,000 people will be vaccinated in a day at the newly inaugurated vaccination centre. Asad Umar said vaccination campaign is meant to make the city corona-free. He vowed to achieve vaccination target at the earliest. He said over 4.6 million people have been vaccinated so far and there have been no side effects of the vaccine in Pakistan. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, along with his counterparts from Turkey, Sudan, and Palestine, left for New York today to attend the United Nations General Assembly session being held tomorrow to discuss the Israeli aggression against the unarmed Palestinians. Shah Mahmood Qureshi will draw the attention of the international community to the Israeli atrocities against the unarmed Palestinians. Earlier, Shah Mahmood Qureshi held a meeting with his Palestinian counterpart, Riyad al-Maliki, and exchanged views over the evolving situation in Palestine. He conveyed the resolve of the Pakistani leadership to continue supporting Palestinian struggle for their right to self-determination. The Chairman Pakistan Ulema Council and the Special Envoy to the Prime Minister for Interfaith Harmony, Hafiz Tahir Mahmood Ashrafi, has said Pakistan supports the efforts of Saudi Arabia, Egypt and other Islamic Arab countries for peace in Palestine. During a meeting with the Egyptian ambassador to Pakistan, Dr. Tariq Darogh, and Saudi Arabia's ambassador to Pakistan, Nawaf bin Saad al-Maliki, in Islamabad, he said Saudi Arabia and Egypt's position on the Palestinian issue is a step in the right direction. This is Radio Pakistan. The United Nations General Assembly will hold an urgent meeting tomorrow to discuss the grave situation in the occupied Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem, as Israel presses on with its deadly aggression in Gaza and the West Bank. The session is in response to a request from the chairman of the OIC group at the United Nations and the Arab group in a joint letter to the 193-member Assembly President Volkan Bozkır of Turkey. At least 4 more innocent Palestinians, including a journalist, were martyred in fresh Israeli fighter jets' barbarian attacks at Gaza Strip today. There were no immediate reports of injuries, but in attacks they destroyed residential buildings. Earlier, the Israeli forces martyred 4 other Palestinians and wounded scores more during protests and a historic general strike in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. According to the Legal Center for Arab Minority Rights in Israel, at least 58 Palestinian citizens of Israel were detained illegally. UNICEF says more than 50 schools in Gaza have been damaged by the Israeli air raids and rocket attacks since last week, impacting about 42,000 children. At least 221 Palestinians, including 63 children, 36 women, have been martyred and about 1,500 others injured in Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip. Worldwide protests are being held to voice solidarity with the Palestinians against the Israeli aggression. Thousands of people held protests in solidarity with the people of Palestine in front of the Israeli diplomatic missions across the United States. In Washington, D.C., New York, Michigan, Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, and California, hundreds of demonstrators gathered at the embassy protesting Israeli attacks and Joe Biden administration's support for Tel Aviv. Demonstrators carried Palestinian flags and banners that read, "Free Palestine, Palestine belongs to Palestinians," and "Resist." Chile's Palestinian community with more than 300,000 people staged a protest in Santiago denouncing Israel's deadly air attacks against Gaza. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Hurriyat leaders have paid glowing tributes to the prominent martyred Hurriyat leaders, Mirwais Maulvi Muhammad Farooq and Khwaja Abdul Ghani Lone, as well as the martyrs of Haval on the eve of their martyrdom anniversaries. The APHC General Secretary Maulvi Bashir Ahmed and other Hurriyat leaders have urged the people to observe a complete strike and conduct a march towards the Mazar-e-Shuhada at Eidgah in Srinagar on Friday. They eulogized the services and sacrifices rendered by Mirwais Maulvi Muhammad Farooq and Khwaja Abdul Ghani Lone for the ongoing Kashmir freedom movement. Mirwais Maulvi Muhammad Farooq was martyred by the agents of Indian agencies at his residence in Srinagar on May 21st in 1990. 70 mourners were killed when the Indian troops opened indiscriminate fire on his funeral procession in Haval area of Srinagar. Maulvi Bashir Ahmed in his statement also asked the people to organize protest rallies against the genocide and gross human rights violations being perpetrated by the Indian troops in the occupied territory. India has reported 4,529 deaths and 267,334 new COVID-19 cases in a day, taking its tally to 25.5 million, the world's second highest after the United States, with a death toll of 283,248. Some Indian health experts saying infections and deaths could be 5 to 10 times higher. And finally, the weather. Hot and dry weather is expected in most plain areas of the country during the next 12 hours. However, rain, wind, thunderstorm is expected in Upper Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Upper Punjab, Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website, radio.gov.pk, and you can also watch the live video streaming of our bulletins on the link facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News Official.